In this course, I'll show you how to connect your family photos with documents you can use for research, crowdsourcing, and to capture your family legacy in a safe, private space using Ponga and Permanent.org. Hello, I'm Barbara, one of the co-founders here at Ponga. I know that for many of you, this may be the first time you've heard of Ponga. We totally understand. We're a small startup, quite released our software in the spring of 2021 in the middle of a pandemic. So let me take a moment to give you a little quick snapshot. Ponga creates a new way to organize your pictures quickly and easily so that you can use them to privately share stories with family and friends. Here at Ponga, we've always been about sharing the stories that matter. That's especially important to family historians and genealogists. We are technologists with a deep personal interest in the stories of our own families. If you've heard this before, just fast forward a stitch or two. Here at Ponga, we've always been about sharing stories that matter. That's especially important to family historians and genealogists like you. We are technologists with a deep personal interest in the stories of our own families. We realize that the photographs, albums, and books we've been lucky enough to inherit host a treasure trove of stories. Preserving these artifacts in digital form not only creates a backup, but it also creates new opportunities to explore these stories in context. Modern technologies have created new ways to make connections and look at context. Today, there are wonderful companies out there applying advanced AI and networks to capture images with modern cameras and scanners, edit and restore the resulting images with software, store those images, and make them accessible from all of your devices, print the images into new books and artifacts. But at Ponga, we realized that while AI, computer vision, and the resources of the internet created these opportunities to connect, none was really using this technology to let you connect the context of your stories to your pictures. This is digital storytelling. We started by using AI to detect and collect faces so we could quickly organize them into neat albums and label people in every photo. When you know who was there at the moment a photograph was taken, you can explore the details to understand the context, the occasion, and the story behind it. In Ponga, we've created a way to tell that story by letting you use today's always connected internet to capture research from online archives and databases, crowdsource stories from family, friends, and acquaintances who can share memories, and curate what you've learned into a legacy you can pass on to the next generation. Principles of data integrity and privacy guided us. The way we see it, stories bring us together and define us as families and as individuals. These stories are important. We realize that a story told on a sofa is not the same as one performed on stage. Ponga ensures that your pictures are private and accessible only to people you invite as your guests. That said, digital artifacts protects them for future generations. To our children, grandchildren, and the generations that follow, the best chance of hearing these stories, our photos, and the associated material have to be captured in their original, standards-based formats. We also knew that we couldn't own it all. A standards-based implementation has allowed us to pull in content from anywhere on the web. We also knew that to tell legacy stories, you need an archival repository you can control and you can have the confidence will be there for you permanently. In that regard, we were delighted to discover Permanent.org as a wonderful partner. Let me show you how Ponga works with Permanent. In this course, you'll learn how to use Ponga to connect photographs and documents you've collected in your research to bring your family stories to life. When the stories are anchored this way, the stories become so much more real and much more memorable. The photographs you've cherished are touchstones because of a narrative that puts them in context. Combining Ponga with Permanent.org to protects both your digital materials and puts them in context. Finally, as you weave a narrative through your photographs and documents, I'll show you how to share these digital stories to inspire the next generation with a lived history of their parents. Let's start with the idea of connecting photographs and documents you've collected in your research. At Ponga, we believe it's a story that really matters. As a whole, it teaches our loved ones and extended family where we came from and what matters to us. Photographs capture us at a human level with details we didn't even have words for. The documents we collect can have the same effect as seals, ribbons, handwriting, and forms convey the priorities of the time. Let me tell you a little of where I'm going with this. Earlier I mentioned that how at Ponga we've applied computer technology, specifically artificial intelligence or AI, to organizing images by the people in each photograph. From our perspective, the magic of putting names to faces needs to be entirely private and in the service of storytelling because that's what matters. The people in the image provide context to your story, like characters in a story. At Ponga, we use that organization as a starting point to dive into what brought us all together. As you start to tell the story, you can get into the details and reference documents as illustrations to the story. In this screen recording of a Ponga picture, you see how I can explore who was in the picture. Once I click on a selection, I can see the documents attached to it that help illustrate or even validate the story. Think of these illustrations like the string maps used by detectives sorting through what they know, how they know it, and how it connects each image. Instead of bits of yarn and push pins and a corkboard, Ponga starts with your photograph and any kind of image file, then lets you connect context by making selections and adding comments, images, recordings, and embedded links from anywhere on the web. Comments in context can become the basis for a conversation, revealing the color behind the connections. In digital form, being able to show or hide the selection boxes lets you focus on context. Mouse overs show you a preview of the content in each selection box, including names you've put to faces. Our sophisticated technology for tiling ensures that you can easily share even high-resolution images with anyone with a computer, browser, and network. Ponga lets them easily zoom in and out to explore details they might not have noticed, like this cameo, then zoom back out to appreciate the larger context. When you upload pictures to Ponga, we make a working copy of your image file and archive the original. The working copy gets processed to be able to present you with this high-resolution, high-speed zoom in a browser window. That is also what gives you, as our member, the ability to restrict access to your pictures to only those you've specifically and privately invited. Your invitation goes out via email and provides authenticated access to a URL or link to explore and contribute to the pictures or album. That access is available only for as long as you or as the member allow. Since the invitation is keyed to the link, you can also revoke an invitation after you've sent it out. You are in control of access. The way we do this is also important to understand because it relates to the long-term preservation and integrity of your files. We don't modify your image file in any way. If you want it back, it's yours, with all the metadata of the original file. Similarly, if you add content to Ponga Picture, it's added in standards-based formats like text, voice recordings, and attached image files and links. It's cross-referenced by pixel ranges in our back-end systems and never stuffed into your file. So you've seen how to make connections in Ponga. Let's take a look at how to combine the two to both protect your own materials and put them in context. Our like-minded friends at Permanent.org have a similar attitude about protecting and archiving materials. Permanent makes a great repository for all kinds of documents, from birth and marriage certificates to scanned books and home movies. Here in Permanent, you see the rich options for metadata. Let me just copy the link. I tap on the selection where I want to put it, add a message about how this was the family history book my grandmother wrote, and paste the link. Now, notice that the preview image of the cover, the title and description that I added in Permanent are all viewable here in Ponga when I paste. And, look at that, they instantly appear when I mouse over the selection. Our members have been using web-based databases, libraries, and archives to research their family history. Using Permanent lets them centralize these archives with their own media, like home movies. That gives them one reliable repository for both hard evidence and emotional reminiscences. Together they add validation and color to their stories. I've given you a few examples. Now let's start weaving a narrative through photographs and documents to inspire the next generation with the lived history of their ancestors. Weaving stories is easy. Here I'm connecting the ad that inspired Ed to get the Lincoln he'd always dreamed of. Here's the ad I downloaded. Next, I upload the file to Permanent.org. Notice that I can tap on the file, add a nice little description, paste it here for convenience. I could have changed that title too. Hit Save. Then, copy the link, and paste the link into a Ponga comment box. Poof! You see the embedded content. Yep, it's that easy. What you've pasted in, if it's the first comment in a selection, will instantly preview in Ponga. So I've just shown you how you can take a photograph, graphic, or image file of any kind in Ponga and connect it with any other kind of content from the web. Why not a family tree? Victoria McGregor of Victoria's Press has a course where she's taken a beautifully designed family tree from House Elves Anonymous and added it into Ponga, cross-referencing details of her family history with links into her permanent archive. In this example, she's pulled up a page from a book scanned at the Bolton Public Library. While this is a work in progress, it shows us how she can use the metadata in Permanent to add to the documentation of sources and other materials. At a high level, you can see how this kind of illustration could bring a larger context into a family narrative. So, a few best practices to keep in mind. First, when you're working with those touchstone photos that everyone remembers, think first about what it is that makes that photo so important. Tell those stories first. Your follow-on detail might go into the facts that might dispute the myth. The key is to know the difference and be honest about your role as a narrator. Keep context in mind. Finally, remember that imagery communicates powerfully. Use that power wisely. The key is to understand what you're looking at. Consider what it meant at the time and what it means now. So in a community of family historians and genealogists, I realize I'm highlighting why your fine skills are important, and I'm frankly humbled. I hardly need to explain why it's important to include documentation with the histories you collect. For generations, museum curators have used index systems to connect photos and artifacts to their curatorial findings. Today, we're creating new means to do that and democratizing them so that anyone can do it to share their findings. One of the most compelling aspects of digital formats and networks is the ability to use them to connect people. The heart of the story comes from sharing it. At Ponga, we focus on 3 key use cases. First, to use it for yourself during your research to connect notes and documents. They might capture what you suspect or what you've collected to corroborate your findings. Second is to use Ponga to crowdsource more stories, like a digital platter passed around, asking questions of relatives and experts. And third, to capture the stories you've collected to create a curated, produced work. You can use Ponga to ensure that stories are heard and legacies are appreciated. In their digital form, this kind of sharing can happen in person, remotely, or captured online in sessions like Zoom. We have a second course that talks all about using Ponga together with Zoom that might interest you as well. We've talked about how you can use Ponga with the archives at permanent.org to connect your family photographs to the documents you've collected in your research. Doing so creates not only a way to validate your findings, but to also share them with your loved ones and experts alike. Finally, it also creates new ways to explore the stories and expand on them by following new leads. With Ponga and Permanent Archives, you've also leaving a trail for invited guests to follow. I hope that's given you a sense of what you can do connecting your stories visually. We'd love to have you come and explore more. Come visit us at our virtual booth here at RootsTech 2022, where we'll be ready to answer your questions. I invite you to some of our live sessions and have you explore some of our own pictures as our guest. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.